Hi, fourth grade, and welcome back to Science Gizmos with Mr. G. Today I'm here to work on our next science gizmo, which is the Honeybee Hive. So we have first started off with our circuit builder, which deals with how electricity works within circuits, which is applicable to anything that you have that are electronic. And then we looked at the larger use of energy across the natural world and how we as people also harness that for energy for our bodies as well as energy for our homes. Yesterday we looked at flower pollination to look at how plants through flowers can reproduce and harness energy to create more of themselves, which then in turn creates food for us and many other life forms. So today we're going to look at honeybee hive, which is very closely connected to flower pollination because honey, is of course created from pollen. Bees, when they go to flowers, they will grab the pollen and the nectar from the flower, and they'll go from flower to flower, helping pollinate, and they'll bring that nectar back to their hive, which they then will turn into honey. So today we'll be looking at how that works inside of the honeybee hive and get kind of a closer idea of how honey is made, which is of course something that we can eat too. So this also ties back into our energy conversions for our body. So without further ado, let's launch this gizmo. Okay. So, the honeybees are having trouble finding food. You can program a robot bee to help them. First, look around the hive to learn about the bees and what they eat. So, before we even get started, of course, we don't have miniature robot bees. This is just a good way to help involve you, kind of like a video game, with just a little bit of fiction to get you involved inside of a honeybee to understand how it works better. Okay. So, in here we have our honeybee hive. We have our queen bee, our worker bee. This is our little robot bee here. This is another worker bee nurse that seems to be taking care of the larva. This is where honey is. There's an egg there. This is a drone bee. Here's the honey being made. Here's pollen being put in, become honey. And then here is the outside as well. So instructions, select a bee or part of the hive to learn more about it. So let's click our worker bee. So workers are female bees that cannot lay eggs. Most of the bees in the hive are workers. Two types of worker bees are nurse bees and foragers. Okay. And it tells us more about them. The wax glands, they have many jobs, and they use it to build the cells in there. So we can learn all about the different things each of these bee types have. This also includes things like our honey here, and discuss how it's made, which is really cool. I highly recommend reading all of these things because this is a very important part of each kind. So let's go outside and see what's there. So it says select a flower patch to see how much food is there. Pick a patch with lots of pollen and nectar. Remember where the patch is. Then go back to the hive and tell the other bees what you found. Okay, so it looks like I'm just a bee here, that robot bee, and I'm going to go over here to say this group of flowers. Okay, then I go back to the hive and I can tell one of these bees. Design wiggle dance. Okay, so I can create my own little wiggle dance here. So let's say this, 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 this. Okay, so I create a wiggle dance to talk to the bees and tell them where the flowers are. This is how bees communicate. Okay, now they're all leaving. Let's go see where they're going. Okay, looks like they're out and they're grabbing honey. Awesome. Great, so they have found pollen and nectar, which then you can see now has created more pollen, which will then be turned into more honey. So the goal of this is to increase the number of bees as well as to increase the volume of the honey. And just to play at your own pace, to get a good idea of how this system works, which happens in any honeybee hive across the world, and is very essential to not just making honey for ourselves, but pollinating those flowers, which will then create things like that we eat for food or create food for the animals that we eat as well. So enjoy playing around with this and getting to know it. It's kind of like a video game in this sense, whereas the last ones we've done is more like, um, a lab. So let's look at some of the questions. So there's 5 questions here that might require you to go back into the game and try some things out. So once you have finished this, please check your answers and submit them so I can check you for participation. I look forward to seeing your work, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.